Welcome back to this week's episode of Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles. On today's episode, we're going to take a walk through my entire reptile room and show you everything that I've got. Stick around. We're going to walk into the reptile room. I'll show you all the way around. I've got a bunch of racks, I've got some Exoterra front opening enclosures, and I've got a giant tower of self-made, homemade enclosures that I made with my dad out of melamine and a little bit of glass. Let's go ahead and start off. Well, I guess we might as well start with Josie since she's on my shoulder here. I number all of my animals because I do breed several of them, and it's easier to just put them in a spreadsheet by number, and that way I know that Millie is number 5 and Honey is number 6. And for Josie here, Josie is number 33. Now let's get something out of the way. I am not an animal hoarder, nor am I a professional breeder, but I have produced 23 leopard geckos, I believe. So the 33 is basically the last leopard gecko that I ever got. Her and Jerry are 33 and 34, I think. And then, of course, I've got some that I produced this year. So let's go ahead and move on from Josie here, who, by the way, I have no idea her age or her sex. I just know that she's a female. And today, she got her first boyfriend. We're breeding her today, and we're going to put her with Cheech. And we're going to get to Cheech in a little bit. But let's go from left to right as soon as you enter the room. And let's start off with the boa enclosure here. Now, my boa constrictor, her name is Franny. I got her from a friend of mine who just couldn't keep her anymore because he was moving in with who is now his fiance's family. And he couldn't keep any snakes. She didn't want any snakes around. That was the deal breaker. So I've got Franny now. Franny's a little bit iffy when it comes to handling, but she's usually pretty good once you get her out. A little bit defensive before, but afterwards, she's just a sweetheart, and she thinks she's a cobra. She goes up in the air with her face. It's pretty cute, and she's in this self-made or homemade, whatever you want to call it, melamine enclosure. It's made out of 3/4 inch melamine, and it's 4 feet long, it's 18 inches deep, and it's 2 feet high. Now, I'd really like to upgrade her into something a little bit bigger, at least 4x2. 4x2x2 rather, so she's got a little bit more floor space. Right now she's got 6 square feet. I want to give her at least 8 square feet, and likely when she gets larger, even more, probably making a 6 or 8 foot long enclosure. But in the meantime, this is where she lives. This is Franny the boa constrictor. Moving down the tower here of DIY enclosures made of melamine, this is Bob. Bob is a jeweled Lacerda. He was born in 2014, and he's got quite the personality. I mean, Bob will run out right to the glass when he's inside during the winter months, and he'll kind of greet you, and then also try to eat your hand as well if you get too close, or the hook. If you put the hook in front of his face, he'll try to grab that too. And inside here, you'll see that same sort of enclosure as Franny the boa constrictor. His is only 18 inches high, where hers was 24 inches high, or 2 feet high. And he's got a UVB bulb just like Franny, and a basking bulb as well. And he's got the substrate for Franny and for Bob is an EcoEarth type substrate. It's actually Beyond Peat, it's called. It's a coconut core. It's the one that I like to use. I get that at the home hardware store here. He's got his water bowl, and then you see here he's got 2 food bowls because he got both mealworms and superworms today. So I just haven't taken them out because he's still in feeding mode, and I don't want to get my hand bit by a Lacerda. Next down the line here, we've got an empty enclosure. It's empty because it's on the ground, which is a carpeted floor, and it's starting to bow. I built them about 3 years ago, and just before 3 years, it started to bow. Once I get Bob outside in his summer enclosure, which you can see a video about right here, and all about how to keep your reptiles outside during the summer, I'm going to move this rack, or this, not rack, but this row of enclosures, and I'm going to try to put a little bit of barrier in between, or so like just 1x1s is what I'm trying to say, in between on the sides, and that way they don't bow, the glass fits again, and then we're good to go. I might even put tracks in, cut the glass a little bit, just make them a little bit nicer, and then put the edge banding around it so it looks a little bit more professional. But we're going to keep those, and I'll keep you updated on those in future videos, so hit subscribe if you haven't hit it yet. Next, you'll see here I've got a couple racks. These are homemade racks, again. These ones measure 18 inches across, they're 2 feet deep, and then they're tall. I don't know exactly how tall they are, 5.5 feet or something like that. I'm a pretty short dude, so they're about the same height as me. And with these guys, they've got a few reptiles in each one. I'm trying to keep all the snakes in one and the geckos in the other. So let's just start from the very top of the one on the far left. Here we've got Nikki, and Nikki is a Western hognose snake. This one is it was sold to me as a female, but we found out later on it is a male. Now, Nikki's starting to eat really well. He wasn't when he was younger, so he is a little bit smaller than my other male, Arbok, who we'll get to next, or the one after that. And Nikki, I think, is going to be the future breeder for Ekans, who produced some eggs for me, which you can see. I didn't want to get to it just yet, but someone asked me in the comments before if my frogs make any noise. That was the first time I've ever heard them making any noise, chirping or barking, whatever you want to call it. So now you know that my frogs make noise anyway. So Nikki, he was born in 2015, and Nikki is, well, he's a male Western hognose snake. He's an anaconda morph, and he's het for albino, which means that next year, if we choose to pair him to Ekans, we might get ourselves some anaconda albino babies. Next on the line here, we've got the Anery corn snake named Maisie. Maisie is a female. I don't know exactly how old she is. She was kind of a rescue. If you handle Maisie, you gotta go right in there and grab her. Otherwise, she will try to flee to the point where she will jump out of her tub. Literally, she doesn't like being handled. I bought her this way. I knew this going forth. But I did find someone who might want to take her for a breeding project. We'll see how that goes. I'm looking for more handleable snakes, and then maybe something even a little bit brighter, because we're going to do some changes coming in the summer, or in September anyway, October, to the reptile room, and have a little bit more of a display piece available to look at. More displays than the racks that I have currently. I'm not as interested in breeding as I was before, and now I'm just going to keep it to hognose snakes, ball pythons, and of course leopard geckos as well. And I want to have more display pieces to have something to look at when I come in here. But anyway, let's move on to the next snake, which is Ekans, the Western hognose snake. She is an albino. She is a breeding size female. And finally, this year, we were able to breed her. We got some eggs. There's a video about that right here. Fantastic snake. This is my favorite to look at. She's definitely getting a display piece once I revamp the reptile room. This is Ekans, the 2015 born, so 4-year-old Western hognose snake. And just below her, we've got Arbok. Now, Arbok is the mate of the clutch that we have in the incubator right now. Now, he is a 2013 classic or normal or whatever, wild type Western hognose snake, but he is 66% het for albino, which means that he might carry the albino gene, and perhaps 50% of the babies that come out of the clutch, on average, will come out as albinos. Only time will tell. We don't know yet, but we're going to find out, hopefully, right around July 16th. Oh, and by the way, those eggs are looking great. They look big and plump. They're not quite calcified as much as I'd like them to be. However, what I'm going to do to rectify this situation, because I found out this is a pretty normal thing amongst hognose snakes, is I'm going to dip the butt of the mouse or the face of the mouse or whatever in some calcium powder, and I'm going to start feeding her like that once every 3 or 4 feedings. And we're going to see how it goes. We're feeding the crap out of Ekans right now. We really want her to maybe second clutch, double clutch they call it, if she can, but I am not going to introduce a female, or a male rather. I'm not going to introduce a male to her. So Arbok is done for the season. He's just going to start eating and getting big again, because he did get a little bit thin. He didn't lose too much weight. And then next year is Nikki's time to shine. And below Arbok is kind of an overflow from the gecko rack, which we're going to get to next over my left shoulder here. And that's because I just don't have enough spaces where the rack isn't warped and the bins go in freely. So this right here is Jameson, the leopard gecko. Is a baby leopard gecko. I think this is the one that I saw was shedding on his head, which is normal. Babies sometimes have a little bit of a harder time. I bumped up humidity in there today. I redid the entire humid hide, and you'll see here I keep all of my leopard geckos the same. They've got a humid hide in the back, and then of course they have a paper as the substrate, which they hide under when they want to be more dry, and then they have their food bowl as well. And then they drink the water droplets off the side of the tub, and that's how they stay hydrated. And I know people get really upset because I don't keep my leopard geckos with water. Well, I did start keeping a few of my leopard geckos with water, and I'm just monitoring to see if they actually take advantage of it or not, because although I do not think it's necessary, and I've kept Cheech, who we're about to get to, without water for over 8 years. We're going on 9 years now that I've kept him this way, and he's never had an issue. He's never been sick, he's never looked dehydrated, he's never had bad sheds. We're just going to experiment, but that is how I keep most of my leopard geckos, and now we're moving on to the next rack. Starting at the top here, we've got Josie's boyfriend, Cheech, and this is the man, the myth, the legend. This is the oldest animal that I have right now in my reptile collection, or the longest that I've ever had a reptile in my collection right now. The only reptile I've had longer was a bearded dragon named Jackson, who died at the ripe old age of 12 2 years ago. So Cheech here, he's my main man, and he's a fantastic lizard. He's in Josie's cage right now because, well, they just finished breeding. So that's that. Next up, we've got MC Flurry. Now, if you are a fan of Canadian really silly TV shows, you'll know who MC Flurry is from the Trailer Park Boys, and that's where she gets her name from. Also, she kind of looks like a McFlurry because her tail is really spotted and white and kind of looks like an Oreo McFlurry. But this is McFlurry, MC Flurry. She is no longer a breeder. She's not quite big enough. Like, she has put on enough weight in the past, but she kind of yo-yos with her weight. I've got her checked. She doesn't have any sort of parasite. She's healthy as healthy can be. She just sometimes goes off food. She is an eclipse gene, which means that she has a weird thing going on with her eyes, which you might be able to see right here. And of course, she is kept with the same setup on paper and with the human hide and the food bowl, and I spray her down twice a day. And below her is Millie. Millie is definitely not a retired breeder at all. Millie has produced over 20 babies. And Littlefoot and Sarah, who we're going to get to in a second, are her offspring. They are some of the first reptiles that I ever produced myself, so that's why I'm keeping them. She's a Tremper stripe, and she's 66% het for eclipse. I don't have a male eclipse, so it doesn't really matter. Some of the babies might carry the gene or not. I never sell them like they're 66% het eclipse or het eclipse in any way. But I do produce Tremper stripe babies from her. It's really a fantastic thing to watch them pop out because some will turn Tremper stripe and some won't be, so you'll get some striped ones and some banded ones. But either way, she's born in 2015. She's a 4-year-old leopard gecko. Next, we've got Honey, and Honey is one of the newer, or I guess the last adult leopard gecko that I bought. Besides the two that I rescued, Jerry and Josie here. Jerry's coming up. And with her, she's produced some babies too. And we've got some, the first clutch of eggs from her that has already hatched. Like you'll see in a few moments here when we get to some of the other babies. And because she's a Bell albino and I bred her to an animal that was het for albino, some are going to show up albino and some won't. In the first clutch, the only one that's hatched so far from Honey, one of the babies was an albino and the other one was not an albino. So that just kind of shows on average 50% show up albino. She is a 2015 as well. And let's move on to some of the babies. Here we've got Jenny and Lily, and yes, they all got new names when I did the cards for them and did their enclosures last. And these girls here are a product of Millie and Cheech. So these girls here are going to carry some of their genes. It's going to cross over. I'm not the genetics police, I'm the Let's Learn About Reptiles guy. So these two are some of the babies, and then right below them, we'll jump right into them. We got some babies here, and these are from Honey rather than Millie. So like I showed you before, or said to you before, one's an albino, one is not an albino. And that's all the babies that I have for the year. We've still got several in the incubator. I just pulled out eggs from Millie and from Honey again this week. I'm no longer introducing the males in with them. However, they're still producing eggs, still dropping eggs, and I think that perhaps Millie might be done. She's got the thin tail going on. She's eating like crazy. I think she's done. And of course, I just started with Josie, and I'm just kind of hoping to have eggs for a little bit different portions of the year. And that takes care of the two racks behind me. So let's move on to the one that is beside me. Now this rack here is a bit of a storage rack because we've only got 4 animals in there. So let's start from the top to the bottom and go over all the ball pythons that I've got. Now first of all, we've got Zapdos, who I don't know how old he is. He was a rescue, but I know that he's a banana ball python. He might have a few other genes in him, but all I can see for sure is that he's got banana in him. And he actually is a breeder now. We bred him with Medusa, who we're going to get to in a moment. They locked. I visually confirmed it yesterday and the day before. They are now separated. They get fed today, and then we'll get them back in there next week sometime. He is, I don't know how old he is, but he's full grown, definitely. When I sexed him, I popped the hemipenes. He was producing sperm plugs right away. So I know he's sexually mature. Don't know if he's ever bred before. We're going to find out what happens this year. And right below him is another rescue. Now this is one that I rescued not super long ago, and she's got no genes whatsoever that I can see. She's a classic. She's a little bit younger, I think probably around 2 years old. She weighs about 1,300 grams, so she's not ready for breeding yet. Maybe moving forward we can think about that, but I just want to get her up to a healthy weight because she is a little bit underweight. We'll feed her like crazy, and then we'll see where she's at next year, but for now, She's just a great ball python. I've got a plan for her in the summer, which we're going to go over in another video probably next week. But for now, this right here is Miss Noodle, the classic ball python. Now the next ball python here, there's no mistaking what gene this is. This is an albino ball python. This is Pikachu. I love this guy. He's fantastic. I tried to breed him with Medusa this year. He just wouldn't go. I don't know why. Would not go. He's eating like crazy. He's eating. But he is, well, I don't know. He's done for the season. We're just going to feed him. He didn't lose too much weight at all. He is just a great pet. He's very docile. He's just kind of a sweetheart. I love Pikachu, and he's so good looking, as you can see. And we'll just keep it going. Next door, right below him, I should say, is Medusa, who is the only breeder female that I've got right now. She is going to be paired with the banana, which is Zapdos, a few more times this year. And although she is het for albino, which is why I was trying to put her with Pikachu, she just looks classic. However, because banana is a co-dominant mutation, it means that on average, half of their babies, should they have some babies this year, would turn out to be banana. All right, let's wrap this baby up. We've got a few tanks on this side here. It's a row of Exoterras. What I'm planning to put below them will support them later on. It's going to be a full 8 feet. We'll get to that around September time, so hit subscribe if you haven't. We'll get to that video. First here we've got Littlefoot and Sarah, who are the offspring of Cheech and Millie, who we went over earlier. Now these two, they came from the same clutch. They do live together. I know a lot of people are against cohabbing and also loose substrate, but that's neither here nor there. We've got the substrate. It's a mixture of sand and coconut core. They love it. They've never had impaction problems. They eat from the same bowl. They don't have issues. This is the way that they're staying. They've got a hot side, or a hot side and a cool side, and they've got a human hide on the one side and a regular hide on the other. Now these two girls here, they've also got a plant to hide behind. They don't really bully each other. I love this setup. This is fantastic. And right next door, we've got our American green tree frogs. Now these guys I've done a video about as well. The care about them, if you want to know how to set them up, I've got a video about them as well. Check it out. And of course, these guys, they are insectivores also, so pretty simple, just feeding the entire row here. These guys, I have no idea how old they are. They were kind of a rescue thing as well. They've got a waterfall in here, and this Exoterra, unlike the one beside them, which was a 1 foot tall by 2 feet long by 18 inches wide, which is where the two girls are in. This one here is a 12 by 12 by 18, so it's a little bit smaller. They don't really need a ton of space anyway. It's the equivalent of a 10-gallon, which is what is recommended between 1 and 4 frogs. These guys, I've never heard them make noise until today. Literally just earlier in the video, I showed you how they were making some noise. So I don't know, like I'm learning more about them every day. I really love these guys. They're really interesting to watch. They hop around like crazy and they eat the insects. They are way more fun than I thought they were going to be to take care of. And I look forward to keeping frogs for a long, long time moving forward. And that's it. That's my reptile room. The only one beside them is, well, I guess that's where Cheech is now, and that's where Josie's going back to after the video. And then, of course, we've got a couple enclosures that have nothing in them. And I've got plans for one of them, the one that you'll see on the very end here. This, I've got a pretty nice plan for. I think it's going to come together really well. If you want to put in the description below what you think it's going to be, I'd love to hear your suggestions, or, you know, suggestions, whatever, with your guess. Maybe you'll have a better idea than I do. And then there's just a regular 18 by 18 by 24 Exoterra beside that one as well, which for now is empty, but sometimes I do take reptiles in, so I can always move that into another room and quarantine an animal in there if necessary. So I want to thank you for coming back and watching Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles this week. This week, we hit a great milestone, 400 subscribers. I'm super pumped about it. And of course, we have a draw going on. So once we get to 600 subscribers, which is great. That's what I wanted for the entire year. And I think we're going to get there before the summer ends. So as soon as we get to 600 subscribers, we're going to do a giveaway of this green WWR shirt that you see me wearing right here. It's a new one, not the used one. Don't worry. And if you want to enter in the draw, just hit this video right here, put a comment in that you want to be part of the draw, and then once you win, I'll contact you. You give me your mailing address, and then we're off to the races. But that's it. Because I do videos every Monday and Thursday, that means that I'll see you on Thursday.